This is AI Goes to College, a new podcast about artificial intelligence in higher education and beyond. Welcome back. This is part 2 of episode 1 of AI Goes to College. If you want to hear the episode from the beginning, please see the last track on this podcast to hear what students are saying about AI in the classroom. And now we continue the conversation.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I want to turn to some of our faculty voices. We have Professor Julia Deriba Montgomery from Digital Media. We have Kalia Toro Sepulveda in Humanities. We have Fulton Burns in Theater, Rebecca Alter from Nursing, and Ron Bendelli in Computer Information Technology. So again, we're going to listen to some clips and then kind of respond when we have a pause. And so for each of these, maybe like, are you doing anything similar, maybe differently? Kind of what are you learning? Because I know that I learned a lot from the panel about specifically what I could do. And the whole creating your own large language model, like from Ron, I thought that was really neat, very exciting. So first we're going to play a clip where we have some concerns. So we're going to start with kind of like the negative end of the spectrum. And we're going to listen to Professor Sepulveda's experience. Then Fulton Burns is going to chime in about privacy issues. And then Julia, who she's going to kind of like tell us her experiences with her own children who are in high school and college. And, with her, is like kind of comparing it to her students, which I also have the same kind of ages with my kids, and I'm having that conversation all the time. So let's take a look.
So first of all, I'm no expert on AI, but I do have certain concerns, especially when it comes to art and when it comes to writing, when it comes to the performing arts. Because being in the field of the humanities, we are very protective of our capacity to produce, to create, to analyze. And what the future may bring in terms of AI, it can be very promising. It can also be very threatening, right? Because now you can just ask the system, give me some model for this or that. And you suddenly think that you're a writer or an artist. So that is very problematic, because what about all the creative process that real writers, real artists are going through to actually produce something human-based?
I guess I just have a concern from a different sort of thing, which is, what are the potential FERPA implications if this information is being compiled and it's placed inside of some type of system that we're describing, be it AI or wherever it may go? And I can't speak for everyone on the panel, but I know that we know of someone that perhaps our identity is taken from some type of other source, that sort of thing. And I realize this could happen anywhere across the board, that this could, these sort of things could transpire. But that's very much insight specific about the inner workings of the human beings that we're talking about that's being comprised within an AI system. And so it just has me a little concerned from that perspective. I like, however, at the same time, the idea of this tool that potentially could help me understand far better if I'm looking at it from the VARC standpoint, which is the better way that I can support the students that are in the classes that I'm leading. I like this idea, but the one concern comes under, how am I protecting the individuals with whom I'm working?
So I teach in the visual arts. So this is a little outside of my realm, but I have 2 daughters, one of which is a student here and one is this high school student. So I was actually talking to them about this, and we've had lots of conversations about how not to use ChatGPT for your, essays. My eldest, who is very authentic, she's, she does use it to help her with prompts or to help her think of another word or help her enhance her essays and her writing, and it's been great. My youngest, who is always pushing boundaries and trying to get away with things and a little impulsive, she uses it a little too much. But so we've had lots of conversations. it is helping them. Like my youngest is in an Algebra 2 class. Her teacher right now just doesn't really explain things. So she's learning how to do the math problems. It's actually going in, she's getting more involved answers. My concern is what's right, what's not. There's these are areas I don't specialize in, so I can't do the double check. But I do see them using it more and more. I also see them their friends even using it too much, where it starts to impair their own learning. My eldest today, she's like, I can't believe some of the students in my English class wrote their whole papers with ChatGPT. She's like, I don't even know why they're taking the class. They're not learning anything. She's like, it's a waste of money. So I was proud of her for thinking that way. I was like, yes. But also, that's huge. I don't even know how you all do that.
So several different concerns, starting with the process of creativity with a humanities colleague. And then we have FERPA issues. And also just, I think Julia kind of speaks to how it's happening in high school. These, we're going to be getting a big influx of a different type of student. So where do you want to start? Comments?
So much.
I know, it's so much.
I mean, to Fulton's point about privacy, I think having that type of conversation, especially with students, has always been something that maybe we as faculty and maybe as an institution haven't really engaged in as much as we should. Like we, at least in most classes, I believe, have maybe privacy statements if we're using certain types of technology. If students are using something like ChatGPT without us telling them to, I mean, they're sort of they're putting they signed off on, they made the agreement and they signed off on it and they're sort of engaging in it. From the perspective of when we are asking it questions or giving it information, I think about that in terms of how nice it would be to be able to offer them that immediate feedback, as they're working on something, but also, understanding that, did I ask for their permission, whether their name is anywhere in that or not, to run that through AI? And the college's sort of, at least currently, kind of solution, quote unquote solution to that, is that we have access to the version of Microsoft Copilot where we can log in and it sort of protects our data. And it cites things. So if it generates a response and it's taking that response from specific websites, it will tell you where it's taking them from. So from I guess a professional standpoint, we have that, but that the conversation about data and privacy is so complex and so challenging, but definitely one that students deserve to have with us, with their faculty members, as regards AI and all of the various other things. Turn it in. Their papers go to a repository, if we check the box, and then their papers are out there in perpetuity. So, I think he brings up a good point that maybe is spurred by AI, but is broader than just AI. Yeah.
I mean, we'll definitely have to do an entire episode, maybe 2, on
maybe
privacy
so.
issues.
Yeah.
For sure. What about the other issues, especially with the process of, are you really a writer if you're, using ChatGPT as your co-writer? I happen to think so, but what do you think?
So I really love this question, right? Now we're getting into the kind of the theoretical stuff, right? This is really fun stuff. So this came up in a humanities class of mine very recently, in fact, and the topic of art. Early in the semester, I had them, just to get used to it, just to use it one time, make a AI art generated image. Most had never even used it before. And as the semester goes along, we keep coming back to the topic, and we finally, at the end of the class, we'll think about this question. Well, if you are someone who specializes in making AI art, are you an artist? And this came up in our class very recently, and the majority of the class said, absolutely not, it's too easy, too easy, too easy. Which was ironic, given that whenever they were producing it, they noted they could never quite get the image that they wanted to that was in their head. One of the students in the class happened to be a computer engineering student, said, can I speak for a few minutes? And noted that very topic. as well as noted, one of the things that the students were saying was that why it wasn't art was because it wasn't being produced by the human hand. And his argument, quite astutely, was that, but it is through the prompting process. So it raises this question, is what we make divisible? Is that what makes us creative? Is that what makes us human? Is it the writing itself? If so, then ChatGPT is doing this. It's making art. It can hear as well, right? Or is it the idea? Is it that creative spark that begins, that starts, initiates, okay, here's the idea in my head. I want to reduplicate that using whatever tool is there, be it a paintbrush or be it the computer in some way.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I guess the same could be said for photography. A photographer who is an artist, the machine is creating the image, but they're making the choices, right? So we're making certain choices. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting question. I do think this is the good stuff.
Well, let's think about this, right? So let's say we had, through some miracle of time, we had a case where an artist back from the Greco-Roman world happened to make it to the Renaissance world, when all new tools have been invented for artists at that point in time. What would they have said about the Renaissance artist? They may have said, well, your tools are giving you advantages we didn't have. You're not real artists. We don't look at that. We don't look back on that 500 or 600 years later and say that. We think of that as kind of the pinnacle of artwork.
Any other thoughts on these concerns?
The point regarding, high school students are sort of using it now. I think the longer that we take to sort of, I don't want to say get on board, because not everybody's going to have the same feeling about its use or it's not being used or whatever. But I think that if we don't do our due diligence to understand what exists and how it can be used, then, like right now, we don't necessarily have every single student who knows what's out there or knows how to use it. But in 4 years, they will be adept at using it and potentially hiding if they're using it. Hopefully not. But I think something that doesn't exist that should be part of the broader conversation. I would love to get in a room with some of our colleagues in the K-12 system and say, what are you seeing? What is our school system doing to support you in how you're guiding students to use it or not? Because I think probably right now it's just a no, an absolute no. And then do they even know if students are using it?
I can tell you, I have a 17-year-old son. He's a junior in high school. And in about 18 months, when he and his peers are in college, I think that's the moment. I mean, why do you think I'm interested in AI? It's because he's been using it long before we have.
Yeah.
Or at least knew about it, it was it was there. So,
right.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to turn back to something that we've kind of touched on. Some of the professors, you asked them to define an authentic education. And since, I've heard this question from you, Scott, and so of course I'm going to give you an opportunity to explain your idea of an authentic education very briefly. But here we have a computer information technology professor, Professor Ron Vendelli. Then we're going to hear from nursing professor Rebecca Alter, and then we're going to hear from Professor Dariba Montgomery again.
How to use all the tools at their disposal to go out and do a great job and build a Boeing 787 that doesn't fall out of the sky or pieces of it don't drop off. Now, whether they know how to add 2 + 2 in their mind, I don't really care, but I don't want that door falling off that airplane when I fly in it. So authentic education to me is teach them how to use all the tools at their disposal at this moment in time. I guarantee next year is going to be way more advanced than this year, but use all the tools at their disposal to get done what they need to get done.
So for us in the nursing program, it's repetition of skills and things like that. So we have skills checkoffs. We make them follow through this whole process. We make them practice. They hate it. We take them to simulation, and we try to throw wrenches into their scenario so that they have to work through it. but we allow them that safe place to fail and learn from that failure. And then you know that the education has happened when they do something automatically that they're supposed to do. So it's providing those opportunities for them to fail safely, so that they can learn from that and it to become second nature for them.
I think for us, an authentic education in digital media is when they not only understand what we're teaching, but they synthesize it for themselves and they're able to create in their own way. You know, I'm always so excited when, I hand out a project. I know what the results I'm going to be getting a lot of the times because I've been doing this for a while. But when I get that one assignment where I'm like, I didn't see that coming, and I see their voice and I see that they're finally able to really analyze and take all of that stuff and make it their own. And I think AI can be a tool in that journey. I mean, it already is. But I think at the same time, they have to grow and go through some pretty major changes.
Yeah, so I think on the one hand, how do we use AI to create a more authentic education? And I guess we have to think about, how do we keep AI out so that we can keep the authentic education? But I'll start with you, Scott. What is an authentic education?
So I think they kind of hit the spectrum there in terms of what it is, right? So on the one hand, Professor Vendelli has it, it's very practical in terms of can you use a tool to get you from point A to B? Professor Alter, is it part of your nature? Is it who you are? Can you dig that information out? Do you know it? Then Professor Dariba Montgomery, can you synthesize it, right? Can you sort of balance that view? My guess is an authentic education will vary from class to class based upon the discipline. It can hit any of those things. I like the nice balanced effort though. Are we producing students who can wield knowledge, but also know how to use the tools to get them to take the knowledge that they know to accomplish the tasks they need to?
And I agree with that. Like, it might look different in different classes. But like in thinking about sort of a course design perspective, because when you say authentic education, there's just so many different components of that. 'Cause you're talking about learning, you're talking about like how we give them material. But what am I offering in my class that a student can't just get with AI or just get from YouTube or just get from searching the internet? Like, what is it that I am offering myself? To me, that's also a component of authenticity. Like, what am I giving that they can't just find on their own? As I think, now I can't remember exactly what presentation it was. I was watching a webinar and someone had a quote about like whenever the printing press first came into existence, that they won't need teachers anymore because they're just, people will have access to books and they'll just be able to learn from books. And then something similar was said when the internet, became much more prevalent. And so I think that, for some teachers, like that's a question, will I even have a job because of AI? And I think that people want guidance and mentoring, and they want the personal connection as a component of their learning for the most part. And that is where authenticity is really important. It's not to say that all of these tools aren't useful. I use books. I use, the internet, encourage students to use the internet, definitely. But some of the learning activities that they do, some of the ways that we practice, some of the ways that I challenge them to show that they have those skills, I mean, that's me, like that's more from me. And then from the other perspective, like the student's ability to like achieve what they're supposed to achieve, show that they have the skill that they're supposed to have, whatever that may be for whatever class it is, also kind of speaks to that you can do it, you can show that you can do this, and maybe tools help you, but you're still able to show like that you achieve this, that you understand this.
And I think that's the root of the issue here, is that we are shifting again.
Yeah.
We shifted with books, we shifted with the internet, and we have to shift. What are we teaching? We still need to be teaching critical thinking, probably more than ever.
Probably, yeah.
But you need to have that human component there. Any other comments on authenticity in the classroom?
So kind of related, maybe not. I was on a conference call a couple weeks ago here with various folks throughout the state of Florida. And one particular statement came up. Maybe it's hyperbole, maybe it was prescient, I'm not sure. But he made the argument or made this statement that for us not to be teaching AI is essentially professional malpractice at this point.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'll just leave that there.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Audrey?
I mean, that makes sense because you're sort of preventing a student then from being marketable in their career.
Yeah.
If everybody else knows how to use this thing, whatever it is, whatever tool it is, AI in this case, but whatever tool it is, like if we didn't let students ever use computers to write papers, and then they go into a career, and they're told, well, all of your communication will be through email, and you're going to have the ability to type, this much content and attach it. Then it's similar to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at our mission, not necessarily our mission here, but our mission as teachers, to prepare students for their professional lives.
Yeah. And that's the college's mission too.
Exactly. Yeah. So, so how do you do that and not pivot, based on what's going on in the technology world?
Education throughout human history has always been uncomfortable, either for the instructor or for the student. And we are really, if we're not making our students uncomfortable so they can prepare for their future, again, I think it's, we have to really think about, are we doing our jobs?
Yeah. I want to end with some clips with that focus on Professor Bendelli, just because he is a computer science information technology professor. And I think he had some really interesting, specific ideas, some concrete examples of what we need to, or what we can do as professors, as educators. And I think I wanted others to see this as well. And some of them are maybe things that only he can do right now. I can't do myself, but I want to learn how to do. So let's play those clips and then we'll wrap up.
I really like this question because one of the uses for AI can be to flip the classroom. So instead of me teaching the class, or let's say I teach the class and then the student goes home, and let's say I've created a large language model that implements the process that I've outlined, and now the student interacts with the AI and teaches the AI the lesson that I just taught them or the process that I just taught them, and the AI gives them the feedback that I've programmed into it, and they provide me with some type of history or interaction on how well they did and how the AI thought of them. This is one of the things that I'm trying to explore with AI right now, is creating something to do that exactly, flip the classroom. I'm working on 4 areas. Flipping the classroom is one of them, but the other one that I think I spoke about was case studies, where in my classes, I do a case study from beginning to end. We do analysis and design on a system we want to develop. And, one of the issues that I have is that probably 50% of this analysis and design is interfacing with a human being and asking them questions. And I can't simulate that. I have 26 students in one class. I can't sit down with them one at a time and have them ask me the questions for each assignment. So I have to give them the answers. But with AI, if I create a role-playing partner for them, then they can question that partner and ask those questions that they should be asking and will be asking out in the real world. So, that's one example. The other thing is an information kiosk where, for example, I put my syllabus up, and that's helpful because it helps students who don't have English as their first language, who have impairments, hearing impairments, sight impairments. Now they can ask the question of their device and hear it. If they can't see, there's just so many possibilities there.
Yeah, so I wanted to end it on kind of a high note. I feel like he's an optimist when it comes to AI in the classroom, and he has so many interesting ideas, and of course, a better handle than some of us do because of his field. What do you think about his ideas?
Yeah, so I had a chance to talk to Ron afterwards here, because I had a feeling I knew what he was talking about. I just had to confirm it though. So what he's talking about, in November 2023, ChatGPT released what they call GPTs, where you could essentially create your own kind of an agent, if you will. Unfortunately, it's behind a paywall at this point. It's inevitable. It's going to be part of campus at some point. It's coming at some point. And he's very much a forward thinker, where we will be able to have some kind of chatbot within our systems, our LMS systems, whatever LMS has it first will be the winner here, if you will. That we will be able to design personalities within that students can converse with, they can have a dialogue with. Not these kind of rote dialogues that we have with discussions currently, respond to an instructor, respond to two peers, but a meaningful dialogue. Unfortunately, it's not there yet, but he's laying out the roadmap in terms of it's going to be there. I'm trying something else with my class this fall, based upon Ron's statements, by the way. I have no idea how it's going to go. We're going to try it, though, where in terms of, this is for face-to-face classes. I used to give a discussion board for face-to-face classes. It just simply wasn't going deep enough. I'm going to try something where students have to have a conversation with AI, 15 comments on a topic I'll give them, and then give me that copy of that.
The transcript?
Yes, the transcript of the conversation. And they'll be graded on how meaningful that conversation was. Yes. But essentially, he's pointing that direction whenever it becomes embedded within our system. So.
And thank you for explaining what that was. So creating an agent in ChatGPT-4, I think I did that myself, and I did that actually for another podcast, but I did it because I wanted to teach myself how I could do this in the future with my students for that very reason. But thank you for, sometimes in this, when you have new technologies, some people are here and some people are there. But yeah, I think that's such a wonderful idea that you're going to do with your class. But yeah, it's all an experiment right now, right?
Whenever he would talk about kind of like, he can't ask, the students individually all the questions so that they can get a feel for like what it's like to have this conversation with potentially a client. I remember thinking like, it would be kind of cool to like have, a Shakespeare chatbot, and it knows all the different research that's out there about Shakespeare. It knows all the plays. And then you say to the students like, we're gonna, discuss this play, but before we discuss it as a class, go and talk to Shakespeare bot and, ask it some questions about certain scenes that you maybe are confused about, or why iambic pentameter, or, and be able to kind of engage, albeit kind of artificially, with like this sort of AI agent that has all of the information that maybe exists that's been published in relation to that author. And I just thought that would be kind of cool. Like that would be kind of fun. I would do that. I would want to play with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Volunteer to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then maybe even have them, if it tells them something, have them reverse research. Like, is this actually the answer that Shakespeare would give? Do you think? What do researchers say? Or, what do we have a record of that you can, investigate further? So I think Ron definitely is using it in a way that's so very just kind of agile. And he even said, I think, like the way it looks now, it's going to look even more different. Less than a year. So I am optimistic, and just also just kind of like, it's difficult having those conflicting emotions, like over here from the instructional perspective, being like, I have to change so much. I have to rethink how I teach the subject entirely, but isn't it cool? Like both of those things all at the same time. So it's exciting.
I'm just imagining the classroom in a couple years, maybe a couple years from now.
Yeah.
We're having a large group discussion. The chatbot is essentially a member of the class.
Yeah.
You give it a personality, Alexander the Great. You have it create an avatar of itself. It's as if you're talking to a real person from history, and they're part of the class.
Yeah.
That's going to bring things to life so much.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think you're right, Audrey. Like there's this, it's exciting.
Yeah.
Like I'm already doing it with ChatGPT. Having a live class, and we're having a conversation with, just as an example, Wuthering Heights. I'm walking into a scene where Catherine and Heathcliff, are reunited. What happens? Like, what do you see around you? What's in the setting? What does the air feel like? And asking ChatGPT specific questions. I walk into the scene, a Jane Austen chapter, what's going on, and that you can interact and really, but then at the same time, so that's very exciting, right? Really cool. But then I have to change everything. I have to learn all this new stuff.
Yeah.
So I think, we have both sides. It's very hard. Any other comments on Ron's ideas? Very cutting edge.
He's going to be my go-to, like for the most part. Like if I have questions or if I want to know kind of what's going on or what he's doing, like, so Ron, what are you doing with your students? How is that working out?
Me too. He's going to have to start charging.
He may.
So now I think it's kind of obvious, like we need to focus on authenticity as well as like making distinctions between human work and AI generated work. So I think that will be part of the student's process, right? So, just kind of like thinking about kind of like what direction we need to go and all, I mean, this has been a lot. We've brought up so many different things across the board. But any other takeaways, ideas, examples, things that you want to use in your classroom or how you want to respond to students?
I don't know if this is helpful, but I am definitely scaling back to looking more at the process and the product, as we've heard, from a variety of different webinars and sources and conferences. But also really trying to make use of some of the technology that we have access to that isn't brand new, that I haven't necessarily utilized in a way that it could be used. So like Word Online, the file history that exists within that. So if I'm asking students to show me, an example of their ability to outline something, and then from that outline to generate some content, and then from that content to refine it. And then maybe at some point we do talk about AI, or we ask AI to review the essay, or we ask AI to give some recommendations about the outline that they start with. I'm trying to think of ways that I can start with student originality and then build from that, but then also having a way that isn't extremely cumbersome for them or for me to kind of check to see, like, did you generate your own outline? Did you actually, and it's not going to be foolproof, like it's not going to be 100%, but the way that file history goes, it saves as you go. And anyone who just has an outline and then doesn't have an outline, within 2
seconds. Yeah, you can observe the time it takes.
Yeah. And they'll probably eventually like catch on to that, I'm sure. But in my thought for like how to help them, and it's going to help them in other ways, because then you don't lose your paper. It was on my computer, and my computer got struck by lightning, or like power surge, things that could potentially have, probably not struck by lightning, but a power surge. But they have it in their OneDrive. And so I've had, taught them to use this tool that's been around, for a while. It's not brand new, so that it's easier for them not to lose things, but also that makes it kind of easier for me to really like focus with them on, we start from this point, we start from your thought, and we build from your thought. And then we might engage with AI for these things over here, but this is how I ensure, that your work is yours at these steps of the process. So that's kind of what I'm thinking.
That's a really good idea, because it's kind of like the online version of watching students just write in class and observing their process.
Right. I'm
going to steal that for sure.
You can have it. It is yours. Anybody can have it. I don't know that it will, work the way I'm anticipating, but that's what I plan to try.
Any other thoughts, Scott?
I think a big picture point of view here, AI is taking place right now. That is where we are at the moment. We need to be thinking as well, what other emerging technologies are on the cusp, so we can be there before we're not caught off guard like we kind of were with AI in terms of whatever happens.
Right.
I think we're going to see robotics make a remarkable jump in a couple years from now. They're making remarkable moves that probably are going unnoticed, but pretty soon I think it's going to have one of those flashpoint moments. And I think we're there ahead of it, we can be on the cutting edge with that.
Yeah. So. Love it. Any other predictions?
Oh, I don't have any predictions. I mean, I'm just riding the wave. It's pretty much.
Me too. Well, thank you again for joining me today, Audrey and Scott. This has been great. Thank you so much for your time right now and your insight. I think it's been very productive, and there's a lot of ideas. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah.
And thank you for tuning in to AI Goes to College at FSCJ, a collaboration between FSCJ's AI Advisory Council and the IT digital media folks at Florida State College at Jacksonville. I'm Professor Sarah Stewart, and joining me today are Dr. Audrey Ante and Professor Scott Kaysen.